Hi, you guys. This is Robin with Weight Loss Apocalypse. I've got a fabulous clip of a session that I did today. This client and she came to me with horrible binge eating. And she has been chronically extreme dieting, lost tons and tons of weight, gained it all back, hiding while she gains it, loses it all again. And she's been doing that for decades since she was a teenager. And we've been working together for a couple of years, on and off, but very consistently over the year. And she is now to a place of full recovery. And we continue to work in different ways about different things. And anyway, so she has had some major shifts over the course of the last, I'd say, 6 months. In regards to her health, she's got rheumatoid arthritis and all sorts of other things. In this session, she actually went to the doctor, and she's now 250 pounds, which is the heaviest she's ever been, heavier than pregnancy weights. But at the same time, she isn't binging. She's on steroids, which is actually promoting the weight gain. And she discusses in this, not this clip, but in this session that I posted in that Patreon account, she discusses her response to seeing her weight and also just how her relationship with her husband is going, which has been an issue. In this clip, I'm actually on a roll. I'm discussing kind of in hindsight what survival mode was like and how, the eating disorder manifests. And this is actually a really good informative clip. So if you're really studying eating disorders or really want to get a sense of what they feel like from the inside, this clip I'm describing quite a bit of it. So, and the blocks, where people get blocks in the process. So this is just a really, really solid clip describing eating disorders in general. So in survival mode and why we do the weird things we do. I know I'm not the only one when I was in that space that did weird things to try to feel better about our extreme levels of fear, attached to weight gain and attached to being criticized and attached to not being able to control our food. I mean, think of all the weird things you do to control your food. And the weirdness and the fact that you have to hide when you do eat. So those are just a couple weird things, and it's not to be critical of that. It's understandable. So I'm actually describing why it's so understandable in this clip. So, if you want to watch the whole session, all of my sessions in full and completeness are in this private Patreon account. It's $5 a month minimum donation through PayPal. It's a monthly, so it turns over, and you have access to all the videos I've been posting for over a year and a half now in there. And if you are ready to recover and you have found that you've done everything and nothing is working and you're connecting with what I'm saying, I'm available to help you. My website is below too. Patreon is below. My website is below. You can go onto my website, fill in the consult request form, and I'll get back to you today or tomorrow. We'll talk today or tomorrow. All right. Enjoy this clip. Can you believe that it's like this whole time you thought everything was reliant on you being thin? Everything.
Yeah.
Can you see now why if you feel that way and you're looking at things with such close, and closed-mindedness and like such tunnel vision, why the pressure on your food to be perfect and super restrictive, how primal that is and how survival-oriented that is. How and why you would be so impulsive too around the binging, because you're becoming so threatened by food that you become really sensitive to those primal urges to binge as well, especially if it isn't perfect, right? And so that whole entire way of existing is Mad Hatter.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because of your belief systems that are making your thinnerness and the fear of fatterness basically the most important thing to life. So that's when people have eating disorders, it's an indication of that. It's an indication of how survival how much they rely on thinnerness and feel threatened by fatterness at a life and death level, and how that pressurizes their relationship with food. And that pressurized relationship with food creates this, again, fight or flight reaction to food being the threat. And so you have to control food because it is so threatening, right? And it becomes everything. It becomes all you think about, because it is food is truly life and death. It is the most important, along with water, right? Important survival need. So when you feel food is threatened, it's like, well, yeah, you're kind of creating the conditions that promote this in our survival mechanisms. So are you really insane, or is this a manifestation of something that has been hardwired into our system because of how primal and necessary food is to survive? And right? And so you can see when you have all these food issues, no one is questioning the desire to be thinner is the issue, because it's so brainwashed into an unquestionable truth in our culture. They don't look at that. So it makes it really hard to understand eating disorders. People just see these people being explosive with food and being highly obsessive compulsive around dieting and their exercise, and they think that the manifestation of those activities are the actual disorder, when they're not looking at the fear of death around being overweight or obese and where that comes from, which is, I think, fundamental to recovery. If you're going to recover from an eating disorder, you got to stop looking at the food and your impulsiveness to it and this obsessive fear of food. Those are, to me, like, of course, that's what you would do. To me, that's not weird. Right? I mean, if you truly believe that your parents' love, your husband's loyalty, the success of your business, your community's respect and positivity towards you is completely reliant on your thinnerness and attractiveness, it would make sense then why you would be so completely obsessed about dieting. And from there, it creates that restriction or constriction in your survival with food, which creates this impulsivity to hide it, hoard it, keep it, etc. So it's amazing to me, like friggin' amazing, when people come out of it, because in order to come out of that, because it's taken over that life and death, I mean, to the degree that you were in it, and the degree I was in it, and the degree most of my clients are in it, it is life and death to let this go. Your brain has really under such a level of threat around gaining weight or not being able to lose weight or letting go of diets. It is so threatening that it feels like you're going to die to recover. So you have to go into what that means and the sense of death that you have and the connection it has to rejection, abandonment, disapproval, loss, being alone. That's what's really at the bottom of this, is complete isolation from humanity. That's kind of like where that primal pack animal thing heads. If you're not thin, you're going to be alone. Which is ultimately where most of your issues stem from. Not just thinness, it's kind of like the perfectionism in your business. It's all kind of the same symptom of the same, insecurity within yourself. So the goal here is that you feel that you can handle being alone. If in the end you are alone, is it worth, in order to be free from this kind of torturous survival state of mind that is really perpetually uncomfortable, there's no comfort in it. Because that's how the brain's wired when you're in survival mode, is to be really sensitive to discomfort. So you live in discomfort. That's why it's depressing. That's why it's so impulsive, because you're constantly trying to get out of feeling like shit.
Right.
Right? Again, survival mode is a way to get out of feeling like shit. So when you're in it, you're constantly feeling feeling bad is always there, and you're constantly trying to move out of it. So anyway, so to get out of it, you have to go into, well, if that's the way, if I have to be uncomfortable permanently, that means the suffering that I've lived in trying to get rid of that discomfort is gone, because there is a point where the suffering of trying to get out of that discomfort is far worse than the discomfort. It's sad. It is sad. It is depressing. It is hopeless. It is dark. You know, and I think this process for you has been that I always have that darkness. It's always there, and I gotta do better. I gotta do better. I gotta do better. This needs to be done perfectly. And it's like, you know, face the darkness. Get into the darkness, because if you can tolerate that darkness, if you can actually exist in that darkness without running, then you don't have this constant need to be, first of all, afraid, controlling, impulsive. It gives you that space to think if you're not afraid of that discomfort.
Yep.
You know, and so what I found amazing for me is in the acceptance of that permanent discomfort. And that's why I say it's permanent if you go into it, because that's what it feels like. The brain is using that sense of permanence as if it's death, because death is permanent, right? And so the permanence of that discomfort, if you stop trying to remove it, is you really have to go into, well, I'm going to feel like shit permanently. Well, is feeling like shit the way I'm feeling it? Whether it's I'm going to be rejected permanently, I'm going to be alone permanently, no one's going to like me permanently, I'll never get married permanently, I'll never have kids permanently. You go into that, right? All of those fear thoughts, ultimately, are those things as bad as a life of complete and total suffering perpetually? Plus, you still feel you still feel like shit.
Right.
So it's not like what you're doing to get rid of those depressing and terrible, fearful thoughts is getting rid of the depression. It's just giving you the illusion that you can fix it. So you're really just living in suffering and depression. And fear, frantic fear of what's going on, right?
And the fear is the worst one for me.
Well, right, because I would have to say it's what you just said. I'm going to clarify. Is it the fear of fear, or is it fear?
Fear of fear. Yeah.
Right? That's how, because fear to me is like, all right, I can handle fear. It's when I'm afraid of the fear that I become extremely impulsive. Don't even look at it. Don't look at it. Right. You don't even know what's there, but because I can feel fear and I'm afraid of feeling fear, I'm going to do something fucking crazy. And you do. You end up being a weirdo. Super controlling, super critical, because you're trying to get rid of the fear you're afraid of. It basically magnifies fear exponentially when you're afraid of it. But when you look at fear from an actual physical feeling, there's so much you accept and live with that are far, far worse. Like, not that we accept nausea, but nausea. Nausea is horrible. You're not afraid of nausea. You just exist in it when it occurs and you think there's something wrong. But you're not like impulsive and with nausea. And nausea is 10 times worse, you know. Even like, I recently sliced the tops of my fingers where the skin completely got cut through. That is easier than, pain. This type of pain to me is far, far easier than the fear of fear. Fear is just like, it is a physical sensation. Anxiety is a physical sensation. It's when we don't question it or look at where it's coming from because we're afraid of it. I think that's the biggest block. If I were a doctor prescribing anxiety medication, if I were a psychopharmacologist or a psychiatrist, can't remember which one, psychiatrist, I would ask about their fear of fear first before prescribing an anxiety pill. You know what I mean? Like, it's a big deal when people are afraid of those feelings because it makes it 10 times worse, and you start to have all of that panic, like a panic attack with when you're afraid of fear, right?
Yes.
I've had them. So I know what it feels like, right? And that's why I was so like it's bizarre, the weird things we do when we're in that space because we're trying to survive. We're just doing what our brain tells us to do, which is get out, leave now, that impulsiveness. So, you know, as you address first of all, we address what you're afraid of. It requires you go beyond the fear of fear, that you get inside the fear to open it up. As you experience your heart sweating, you know, you go into what this is and you actually experience it. The key is not feeling sorry for yourself, because a lot of people get into that space, they feel sorry for themselves, and that's a defense mechanism. It's not working, you know.
I did that for a little bit when Nick called me out. Like, he's such an asshole.
Yeah, poor me. I have to be responsible for being a dick. Once again, you sound probably like your mom or your dad. I know. And we say that in compassion for them. Because do they have any awareness of what's going on? Do they really? I mean, you have gone pretty far out to get this type of help, and your husband is not enabling it. So, you know, think of what environment you're in that is now addressing and unraveling it. And you have to have compassion for your parents that do not have that environment at all. Yeah. In fact, their environment is promoting this way of thinking, right? And so you can't expect them to change. So you kind of just have to go, yeah, that's just how they function, their codependency way of thinking. And you just don't buy it. You just end up just going, okay, you don't buy it. You're not so rapidly running over to help them out. When your mom is having a frantic panic attack, it's like she's in her hysterics, right? You don't buy it. Yep. She wouldn't, if no one responded to her hysteria, would she still do it?
You know, that's a really good question. I don't think so.
I know, right? Because that whole hysteria and victim positionality is a manipulative way to get attention and to try to control someone passively. It's just like, I know, you've done it. Look at yourself when you do that. You can go, oh yeah, I'm trying to, even playing the victim role with him, I wanted him to feel bad. He's hurting me, so I'm going to hurt myself. Right? That's what you did with the food. So, because it's his fault. Yeah, I'm going to show him as I shove this 3 burgers in my mouth and blame him for being uncomfortable. And then I'm going to go to Robin, and her hunger scale doesn't work.